Hello, I'm Richard Murphy, and in this video I want to do some, if you like, out loud thinking about an issue that is of real concern to me as 2021 begins. We all, I think, rather naively hoped that once 2020 was over, the world would look so much easier. It has taken very little time for that myth to be shattered. It's very clear that 2021 is going to be at least as difficult as 2020 for the first few months, and maybe a little better thereafter if we're lucky. Now, I'm not wanting to talk about viruses and vaccines. I want to talk about the economy because that's my thing. And my concern is that as our measures to tackle coronavirus continue, the degree of imbalance in the UK economy and in other economies around the world is growing. The imbalance that I'm talking about is in particular created by continuing programs of quantitative easing, which I support, but which are continuing to inject new government-created money into the economy, and the resulting imbalances in wealth and savings that are arising in the economy as a result. Now let's just put that in context. Quantitative easing simply creates new money. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I fully support the idea that new money should be created at present to buy back government bonds which are effectively being issued to finance the deficits that are taking place at present, to ensure that low interest rates are maintained, to ensure that there's no disruption to financial markets, and to guarantee the supply of funds to make sure that at this critical time, whatever resources are necessary for the government to continue to function are available for that purpose. But it is an indisputable fact that new money must go somewhere. And if the government is running a deficit, and it is, that means that somebody else in the economy must be running a surplus. This is known as the sectoral balance equation. There are four sectors within the economy. There's the government, there's households, there are businesses, and there's the overseas sector. And if one of those is in deficit, for example, the government, then overall the rest must simply be in surplus. Now, of course, it could be that two are in deficit and two are in surplus, but whatever happens, the total deficits have to equal the total surpluses, and that is an accounting function. It's an absolute fact because debits equals credits, and if money is debt and some people owe, others must be owed. That's literally a function that must exist. Now, what is the consequence of that? Quantitative easing is simply meaning that more and more money is being pumped into the economy by the government, and as a result, there is more and more money that must be owned by people other than the government, and those are largely individuals. Some of it will be by business. The overseas sector seems to be largely stable. If, as I suspect, and as the evidence shows, most of that money is going to private individuals, that means that some people in the UK are getting wealthier as the government pumps more money into the economy. Their savings are growing, and it's not hard to see why. Some people are becoming wealthier simply because the value of their holdings of gilts are going up because interest rates are so low, and those two things relate to each other. The stock market is still running well, but also house prices are rising because people are spending more on houses, and quite simply people are spending less, and therefore savings are rising. Now, that's fine, except, of course, that creates an imbalance. Now, historically, it can be said that fiscal policy, that is, policy run through taxation, was meant to create imbalances in the economy, or rather it was meant to usually address imbalances in the economy. In other words, the imbalance it created was to redress and put right the problems that were created by the market, and therefore were designed to reduce inequality. Monetary policy was meant to be neutral. What is very clear is that now monetary policy is not neutral. Monetary policy is creating imbalances. And this is an issue that I think we're going to have to face in 2021. I keep being reminded of the book that Keynes wrote in, I think, 1940, How to Pay for the War. And his book was to basically describe how we were going to face the most almighty imbalances in the UK in 1940 and onwards as he foresaw it, because he realised that the war campaign was going to be a long-term issue and not a short-term one, and that this was going to create financial imbalances, and unless economic management was adjusted to allow for that fact, then problems are going to arise. Now, he put in place various measures, and I'm not suggesting we're at war, and I'm not suggesting that everything he said in 1940 is true now, not least because we're not facing a gold standard world, and he was. But the imbalances that are being created between private wealth and government deficits do have consequences. In particular, if all that money is saved outside what I might call the productive sector, we are going to see continuing asset price booms, including house price booms, because people are going to have to do something with that cash, and they're not going to be able to spend it, and they probably won't want to spend it, because the evidence is very strong that after downturns, people are very cautious for a significant period of time, 3, 4, 5 years at least, before they will return to old patterns of spending, because they're simply cautious that the problem may recur. So that saving has got to find a home. Now, the government is actually perversely at this moment not providing those savings with a home. It's not issuing net new gilts because everything is being funded by QE. And I understand the reason for that, but I also see the problem in that, and I want to flag that problem up. The problem is a very simple one. We have a desperate need for financial infrastructure investment in the UK. We are going to face a desperate problem with unemployment in the UK as more and more businesses fail as 2021 continues, simply because cash flows are going to fail. We do need to transition the economy from the one we've been in to the sustainable one we have to be in. We are going to need to create the jobs to ensure that employment is ongoing. We are going to want to make sure that people are not sitting around unemployed and being paid vast amounts in benefits through no fault of their own, but vast amounts in terms of the total economic spend. And we are going to need to invest in continuing adaptation of our social and care and health services to make sure that they can manage not only this crisis, but crises that might be to come. So I am now thinking that the time has come for the government to actually think about putting those saving balances to work. Now, I've long discussed this. I've talked about changing ISA accounts so that they can only be invested in what I would call green bonds, which are effectively used to fund the Green New Deal, and that no other options are available, and that a payment of, say, 1% interest on such a bond would attract walls of money, mountains of money into such accounts, because finding 1% almost anywhere now is so hard. Do the same with pension funds. Require that in exchange for the tax relief that people get on making their savings, savings which at the moment are not in macroeconomic terms required within the economy, however desirable they might be in microeconomic terms for the individuals who make them, create an incentive, a requirement in fact, that a pension fund put, say, a quarter of all the new money coming into that fund each year into an investment which will result in new employment in the UK. Combine those two together, and it wouldn't be very hard in practice for £100 billion a year to be released into investment in the new economy, in the real new economy of work, in other words. Now, what does that mean? It means that the government is actually seeking to mop up some of the funds that it's injecting, which are being saved, back into the productive economy by redirecting the savings of those who now have the benefit. I believe that this sort of thinking is what we now require. It's not how do we fund the war, it's how do we fund the post-coronavirus economy. And without seeking to redress these imbalances, I don't believe that is possible. And the process of redressing the imbalances must embrace the solution, which is creating new work with capital which is available from people on long-term borrowing arrangements. Make these bonds fixed term, make them capable of being rolled over, make sure the interest rates remain low by all means, all things which are within the control of government. But deliver that and we have the basis for a longer-term prosperity once we've got over the immediate crisis. And that is fundamental thinking to be undertaken now, because if we don't do it now, we won't be ready when we need it. That's what this thinking out loud is all about. Thanks for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, I'm pleased. If you want to see other videos like this, there are links below this screen. If you want to subscribe, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter as well, at Richard J. Murphy. Look at my blog, Tax Research UK. And if you'd like to donate, because this video series is being largely paid for by donations, there is a donations button on every single post on my blog. Thanks a lot.